All right, and good morning. Making another one of these then, I guess. My last video actually for the size of my channel had rave reviews, magnificent response, which was pleasing. Again, I'm not really doing this for views or anything like that, or to kind of make a livelihood of this at all. I just want to talk about football, and something I enjoy doing, so I'm quite happy with it right now, to be honest. And as long as stuff keep popping in my head to talk about, or stuff hits the news and I've got an opinion, I'll share my opinion with you, and hopefully we can discuss that and all learn something. Really, that's it. So what popped into my mind today was pretty obvious, because there was the first interview that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has done since being fired by Manchester United, 2 years ago now. Yeah, right around 2 years ago, almost to the day. He gave with the Athletics, so it's quite good timing to hear his perception. He said a lot of interesting things in the interview. Now, I've not watched it. It's not available to watch online from what I can see, but I've read snippets of it, paragraphs, and I think I've got a good idea of the kind of questions he was being asked and the responses he gave. Really kind of evidently, and probably the biggest highlight of the interview, was his thoughts on signing Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the best players of all time, had done very well at Juventus in Serie A, scored more goals than Lukaku, I think, who was second top scorer the season before. Don't quote me on these numbers, but he scored a lot of goals at Juventus in a tough league historically to score goals. Typically, a striker will score more goals in England than Italy because of the low block defending that goes on there, the depth of the defending, and quite frankly, the kind of standard of defending is very high in the Italian league, always, no matter what the standard of the league is in general. So he's done well there. He's come to Manchester United. I think that what had happened was Man City either showed interest, or Ronaldo's agent had given off that vibe that he was going to go to City. As a Manchester United club, manager, boardroom, that was obviously a bitter pill to swallow. Manchester United right at that time were in the mindset of wanting to compete with them. If Man City get a global superstar that used to be the poster boy of your club, it kind of turns the tables a little bit, doesn't it? There's a balance of power there that, Man City would rub in no end. So he didn't go to Man City, he came to Manchester United. Now, that was the problem number one. And I think Solskjaer even says it, that he thought it was good signing. He signed off. We couldn't really not do it, but it didn't work out. It didn't work out. It was the day that Solskjaer was fired. Not officially, obviously, but that was the day that he'd almost dug his own grave, really, because Ronaldo coming back in upset the apple cart no ends. I mean, just to take the number 7 shirt off Cavani, who Cavani was they'd convinced him to stay another season. He was going to be leading the attack, and young Mason Greenwood was going to kind of get minutes as well. And that was the idea. That was the plan, and bringing in Sancho, bringing in Varane that year. They had a real idea of what they wanted to be. Now, whether that would have been successful, that team wouldn't have won a league title even with Cavani up front and Ronaldo not coming in and upsetting the apple cart, like I said. But they would have done a lot better without Ronaldo, which is ironic because Ronaldo scored a lot of goals. But it's very similar to Tottenham, in my opinion, became right now. You've got this world-class player, but you've got to play around the player instead of him playing around the team. And that's what happened with Ronaldo. Ronaldo was useless for Man United unless they played around him, which they did, but it hurt the overall effect of the team. I think that's obvious, and I don't think I'm saying anything groundbreaking there about the time. So that really obviously put the first kind of nail in the coffin for Solskjaer. I don't think there was going to be, again, a long-term solution for him anyway. I think we would have done all right that season. He would have stayed longer, and that would have been that. Which leads me to my next point. Obviously, Solskjaer, I think he finished twice in the top 4. He came as an interim manager. He had the great night in Paris, and then he had massive inconsistencies all the way through, whether it be a long home streak of winning or a long away streak of winning. I think he has the club record, or maybe even the Premier League record, of away wins in a row, or games in a row without away losses. But at that time, our home form was terrible, and it was always vice versa. There was never consistency. It always seemed like whenever Solskjaer was 2 games away from being sacked, we went on a run. And we went on a run, and he was relying on that. I think that's telling of a team that's inconsistent, and telling of having bad eggs in the team. Now, Solskjaer is, I don't know the fella, but he comes across as just a great human being, doesn't he, really? As far as his backroom staff goes, Kieran McKenna, who is doing bits in the championship right now. Kieran McKenna took over Ipswich. I think they were mid-table. He got them promoted, and now they're looking for promotion to the Premier League all within 2.5 seasons, which is remarkable. Yeah, Michael Carrick, and Michael Carrick went into Middlesbrough last year and did fantastically well. I think he's gone off the board this year, actually. I think they're struggling. But he did fantastically well last year. And then you had Mike Phelan. And Mike Phelan was assistant manager for Ferguson when we won, the double, the Champions League and all these things in the late 2000s. So, I mean, his backroom staff were real solid. Now, that doesn't mean that just because Kieran McKenna is doing really well at Ipswich doesn't mean that he was a great number 2 or number 3 or whatever he was. That's different, right? You can have assistant managers that don't make great managers that are great assistant managers, and vice versa. You can have top head coaches that if you ask them to be an assistant, they'd be atrocious. They just wouldn't be helpful. So he had a great backroom staff is the point there. However, the inconsistencies probably lie from what he was saying. One of the big headlines from his interview is that he essentially had a few bad eggs. A few players thought they were better than what they were. I can kind of, think about the players that he meant. It wouldn't mean players he bought, I don't think. I think he's talking about Pogba. I think he's talking about Lingard. I think he's talking about the leakers, the real bad eggs, the ones that are leaking stuff out of the dressing room under Rangnick, going on social media, probably Martial too. These players that Solskjaer inherited that, again. And what's interesting as well, he said that he offered captaincy to multiple players, but they didn't take it. And then I'm assuming he's talking about before Maguire. But he might be talking about when he made Maguire captain, which I don't know if I would even share that information after the fact. But so I'm assuming that it was before Maguire when he first got to the club, before he bought Maguire. And that shows you if you're turning down being captain of Manchester United, as well, there's something to be said about knowing your place and saying, hey, I'm not a leader, boss. I'm a right back. I'll do my best, but I'm not the leader of this team. I can respect someone being honest, but at the same time, it sounds like they just didn't have big enough shoulders, which is obviously, kind of sums up Manchester United over the last 10 years, really. Bunch of players, big egos, but not big enough chests, So he's talking about Pogba, he's talking about Lingard, he's talking about these players that essentially let him down. They were massively inconsistent, right? And then you throw Ronaldo into that and having to play around Ronaldo or sub Ronaldo and that causing problems. That signing was a disaster. I mean, you're talking about in my opinion, the best player the club's ever had. Maybe not for Manchester United, right? But the best overall player, the best career, the heights he hit, no Manchester United players ever hit. And he's almost kind of ruined Solskjaer's plans, ruined his team. From a tactical perspective, you've got to play around him. We couldn't press the way he wanted to press. We couldn't plan the way we want to plan. It was all geared around Ronaldo. So sure, Ronaldo scored 18 goals in the Premier League. He scored 5-6 goals in the Champions League group stage that year, but the team was worse with him in it, and he was never supposed to be in that team. Again, I don't think Solskjaer was the man to take us to the next level, to win a league. I don't think Solskjaer would have ever won a league title with us. I think he's too nice. I think he's a super nice guy. And I'm not a believer in someone being too nice. I think you can be I don't think you can be too nice. I guess maybe a bit too frail. I'd imagine confrontations with players like the bad apples that he's talking about now normally went with him erring on the side of shrugging his shoulders and letting them get away with it, or it caused too much hassle, it's better for the group, kind of taking easy decisions. That goes back to his time at Cardiff. One glaring omission from his Cardiff time was that by the end of his time, he lost complete confidence of his own decision-making. I heard that when he first came to Manchester United. I was like, oh, that's a red flag. I want this fella to do so well. But that's the issue there. I just think he's a super nice guy and probably doesn't have the again, what we're talking about with like Ange and Pep and hopefully Ten Hag, where they'll put people in their place and they'll be the leader. So it's a leadership issue. Tactically, I think Solskjaer was always second tier too. Good tactician, made some great substitutions. There was a lot of games where he said, see, brought subs on and they've made an assist, scored a goal, sorted things up. But honestly, he's gone into games and he was always adapting to other coaches, always adapting to other teams, famously playing 5 at the back against Liverpool and saying, hey, we found a nice way, and getting absolutely walloped and just reacting to situations. He was never someone that was essentially leading from the front. Which brings me to a final point. Club legend for Manchester United. Seems like a great fella. was a great striker. Great striker is hard to say because he was a super sub, wasn't he? But he hung around a lot longer than the team, like the Yorks and Coles that kept him out of the team. But he was a top level centre forward. He was never Erling Haaland, right? But he was a top level centre forward. Obviously had a great career at Manchester United, you know. So what's next for him? He said publicly that he's got one more job in him, which is a weird thing to say. To me, you're either a coach or you're not. And I think that's the thing, is that he doesn't want the ending to be being sacked by Manchester United, which I completely understand. That's human nature. But at the same time, you know, you've got to accept kind of your life and what you want. And if you're not a coach to your core and all you say is, well, I'm going to coach until I can't coach anymore, you know, people take breaks, people need to take time out. But I've never seen a coach really say, oh, you know, I've got one more job in me and then that's it. So that's alarming if I was a chairman, which I'm not, by the way. But if I was a chairman, I'm thinking about the team that he could go to now. The standard of level coaching. I do compare Solskjaer to people like Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard and think, well, Solskjaer to me is on a different level of the ladder of them two, higher than them two. They're easy comparisons because they were top players, you know, better players than Solskjaer, right? More consistent over careers, had amazing careers, but they've both kind of pitted out as managers, right? Steven Gerrard's ended up in Saudi Arabia, Lampard's in the kind of dole line. They're really looking for jobs, but they were given opportunities in the Premier League to manage. Would Solskjaer get an opportunity again in the Premier League to manage? Well, he did with Cardiff again. And then he went, but the difference with Solskjaer is he went away to Mulder twice and was very successful. Now people say, oh, it's that league, terrible league. I mean, how below the Scottish League that league is, you don't have the two big, but I guarantee if you take the rest of the teams, it's very competitive to the Scottish League. So it's something to be said. And then obviously he had a successful time at Manchester United up to a point. And the point was that he just wasn't an elite manager and couldn't do the job. Now, there's only 2 or 3 elite managers out there, right? So that doesn't mean he can't get a good job moving forward. So if he wants to get a job, you know, would you take him at a Premier League team that, you know, bottom 6, bottom 7 that need to stay up that season? No, I would not. I think there's too much inconsistencies there. There's too many red flags. There's too much worries. So it's almost like you wouldn't put him in a 14th to 20th Premier League team, but a team that's established in the Premier League, that's not so worried about, you know, losing their Premier League status. They've kind of gained that. I'm talking about teams like Brentford, Brighton, Fulham, Palace, Villa. These teams that want to take the next step. By the way, he wouldn't go to Villa, right? But I think that's more likely a team that he would land in, okay? A kind of standard team, whether that be in the Premier League, whether that be Serie A, a project that you could think, well, hey, if this goes well, this fella could take us on to the next step because he's got pedigree, he's got experience, he's coached at the highest level. Can we take him on? He's not going to get an opportunity like Manchester United ever again unless he took a team like Brentford, right, which they're not going to get rid of Thomas Frank, but that mid-table team and took them into the Champions League, then yeah, sure, he wouldn't go to Manchester United again, but he might get that opportunity. I don't think that will ever happen. He might be better off taking a national team like Norway and doing well there, but club legend, I wish him well. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good man. And I just wanted to summarize because that was on my mind. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if I'm being too harsh on him, or let me know if the fanfare is there, because I'll be absolutely honest with you. Obviously, he was a hero of mine 25 years ago, right? And a thoroughly bloody good bloke, you know? So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I appreciate it. Again, as long as I'm enjoying it, I'll make more. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.